Hello.
Same. Will they announce the next book today?
Yes.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah. Guys,
Excited.
welcome to book club. The whole gang's here.
Hi, hello.
Yeah,
We
wahoo.
all read the book. We all finished the book?
I annotated again.
Wow.
Lindsay annotated the book.
I just read.
Same.
I
Chat,
have tabs I want to use.
who all read the book? Which ones of you read the book?
And are we all ready to collectively cry together?
Yeah. Me. Anonymous. Thank you so much. Me. I have ADHD. Reading is hard. You can audiobook it also. That's what I did this month, Smile. I didn't read first stream. Oh my gosh, welcome, Chelsea. Hello. There was a book? Yes. Okay, so for those of you who don't know what the heck is going on, hello, welcome to Alveus Book Club. We read a nature or conservation related book every month, and then we have a meeting and we all talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you guys can read the book. And today at the end of this meeting, we'll be announcing the book for the following month. So it's a great time to be here.
Like none of the books are going to be happy. I also have that feeling.
It's possible.
What does that say about the state of the world?
Pretty consistent.
Yeah, so this book was The Last Rhino, which was, what, was Amanda's suggestion?
What was that?
Whose suggestion was this?
Mine, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure it was a chat suggestion. Yeah, it was a
So,
chat
chat, this is your fault.
Suggestion. Speak
Chat's
up.
fault.
Who did this?
Yeah.
The next one will be happier.
Oh,
It was sad.
it was sad.
It was not what I was expecting at all. Me either.
Nope.
For a book called The Last Rhinos, there was shockingly
Little Rhino.
little mention of rhinos.
That's so true.
Trauma bonding is fun, correct?
That's
I
why
learned
we're
way
here.
more about elephants than I did about rhinos.
Same.
In the Rhino book.
Which was cool.
It was
like,
really
I
cool.
appreciated it, but
I'm obsessed with Nana.
I loved the audiobook.
So cool.
Fantastic voiceover. Little
Yeah.
Rhinos. Yeah.
I also enjoyed the audiobook.
Y'all
Same.
remember Coney 2012? Yes.
when they asked middle schoolers to do something about the crisis happening in Uganda, yeah, I remember that. Little 11-years-olds were just panicked.
Was anyone else wrecked by chapter 33?
Which one's that?
When we
That Heidi.
sadly
Lose.
Heidi,
Oh.
and then also end with Lauren saying, "I looked out over the African bush, and I loved so much, and quietly and sadly paid my respects, bidding a personal goodbye to one of the most incredible creatures that has ever walked the earth. If there was a time when I hit a personal low, that was it." And I immediately texted Kayla.
Oh god, I had to
Like,
sit down
chapter
after Heidi. Yep.
Yep.
That was one of the things when, because I finished this book pretty early on. I finished it like within like a week or two of us picking it. It's the fastest I've ever read a book club book. And I
You're
remember
done
like
so fast.
waiting for everybody else to finish and being like, there's sadness coming. And you know it's coming. You can see it coming. It's not a shock when it happens, but it doesn't make it okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the first book club book that made me cry. It probably was at that part. I don't remember what
Yeah.
part.
I think a lot of it was just really, like, I think even, it probably got me, Heidi got me, I think a lot of talking about, like, Nana with, like, her developing, like, cataracts and
Yeah.
stuff was
Yeah.
really a thing that, like,
I was worried about Nana there for a minute.
yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't know if we were going to lose Nana, but also it's something that you and I at least have experience with, working with the
Yes.
animals that we work with and them aging and getting cataracts. It was interesting to read about a wild animal getting one, because usually, like, birds,
You don't
Yeah.
think about it.
they also I think most of them don't probably live long enough in the wild to,
Yeah.
like, they rely on their eyesight so heavily that, like, if they start to lose their vision. But anyway, yeah, so that was interesting. But also I think just, like, the general tone towards the end when he's talking about, like, those last two rhinos that are now guarded 24/7,
It's everywhere.
and you're just like, wow,
Yeah.
That
like,
is
this
the
is-
future of
this
rhino
is
conservation. Is
where we're at
Yeah.
armed guards.
was brutal.
24/7 watch.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Just watching them walk into the bush with them.
Mm-hmm.
Different level sad, but it also made me tear up when he was talking about Nana and like her coming to him, and then like as a like
trying to rewild them.
yeah, well having to use that relationship to like treat her, and him talking about the betrayal and whatever. But then she
Yeah.
recovered, so it's okay.
Yeah.
But I was like,
Yeah.
oh my god, that's so
That
sad.
is
Or when
like
she would-
one of the worst parts, of the job though,
Yeah.
is like having an animal that like trusts you and then having to use
Having
that
to use
trust
it,
to like
yeah.
Yep.
Do
do
something.
something
Yeah.
kind of shitty.
And when he
shitty,
would
like, for
drive
the
away
benefit
in the
of
Jeep.
animal.
And he
Yeah.
would be like, and she's like following me, and he's like, I had to keep driving.
Yeah.
Because this is part
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when he passed away and they came.
Yeah.
I know them coming, especially when they had their young and they were
Yeah.
bringing them
Yeah.
to come meet them. And I was like, oh no.
Phoenix, I think knowing the current state of northern white rhinos gave the whole thing a really futile feeling. And yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like going into
Yeah.
it, I kind of had, and I think
You
most
knew
of
it
us
wasn't gonna
might,
be
yeah,
Yeah.
we knew, so, it kind of made sense that you didn't hear much about them because unfortunately there isn't, really a population to be searching for at that point.
We do read chats. Welcome. Totally, Tanya.
Hello.
Hey, Tanya.
I do think the clickbaity only kind of title was a great way to discuss that the intention of saving one animal is so complicated and getting involved in everything else in the universe. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it really felt like, I don't know, to some extent, as
Yeah.
somebody who is very invested in conservation, like just the loopholes that you have to jump through and all of the, what we were talking about earlier, the permission
Oh,
and
yeah.
the
Running of it
the
all.
bureaucracy of it all.
Words are hard.
To something that like to us feels so obvious.
Yeah.
We're just like, yeah, we want to save them.
Yeah.
So yeah, the frustration throughout the entire book of just being like, okay,
Yeah.
can we at least not all agree that the rhinos deserve to live?
Yeah.
Was it was a journey.
I think to zoom out too, I think and maybe this is just like this is all of us perspective. I think it was a really interesting book to learn about how powerful demand is, because this is all about like, rhino horn, and obviously none of this would happen if that wasn't so valuable, and it wouldn't be valuable if people weren't into it in traditional medicine and whatnot. I think I talked about this recently in a YouTube video. When I went to NYC Climate Week, I had this conversation with this rep from a big beverage company, and we were talking. I was telling her about what we did and like teaching people about consumer choice and stuff, and she said something like, "Yes, but consumer choice. We know consumer choice isn't the silver bullet. Like it's just about what companies do." And I was like, "Why am I here? Number one, then, if like that doesn't matter, and number two, like why are you here?" Because she was sent to the conference to work on initiatives that were put out by this beverage company because they have like sustainability goals that their consumer cares about. We're getting into like the spiral. And so like the only reason that they have that is not because that beverage company is like, yeah, let's care about the environment more. It's because their consumers are like, we want to see blah, blah, blah. So I guess the optimistic side of that is that it does ultimately matter a lot what people want to consume, especially when it comes to animal products. Obviously, like a big one to tackle traditional medicine, and is not like us consuming it, and is not like you guys consuming it generally speaking. But yeah, interesting, crazy how much of a slope that can be.
Yeah.
It also really just blows my mind, and this is from a purely like objective perspective, like that they're like the demand is so high that they don't care if all of them are gone, and you're like, but that means that all of gone. It's very strange.
Yeah.
Like, how do you not care that this giant animal is literally leaving the existence of this plane,
But even like
and you don't care?
from a consumption perspective of the horn in question, like if you kill them all, there will be no more.
Yeah.
So like, what is the
You're
I
on the
don't-
double-edged sword that
it's
you're
very
losing on both
strange to me.
sides.
I mean, I'm just assuming that the person who is like perpetuating not person, but people who are driving all of the poaching As soon as like one supplier runs out, like they're just gonna switch to something else. Like we killed all the rhinos, cool. Like let's go for all the elephants now. Like let's go to like this next traditional medicine that we can make money off of. I agree. Like I don't think they're thinking about that at all.
The
I think they're
poachers-
really
the-
thinking about the
Oh
money.
yeah, the poachers themselves, 100% just thinking about the money.
Mm-hmm.
But the people actually using it as a traditional medicine.
I thought this was really interesting. I read on the International Rhino Foundation that as they think of different ways to tackle like this issue of like the demand for rhino horn, one option that's been presented has been producing a synthetic material. However, the IRF has come out, and I don't know how many years ago this was, and said that they actually aren't really for this solution because they would want more data and just feedback on how this will really prevent the killing of rhinos, because they're already being poached for their horn, and even when they dehorn them, they're getting poached. And we've seen before that even when synthetic materials are like produced, it doesn't really detract again from the poaching of these animals. They just presented a list of like things that they would want these companies to like answer. So I just thought that was really interesting because I had never heard of that conversation being like brought up. But
There's also with industries like traditional medicine, when there's like superstition involved, the real thing, like the more rare that it becomes and like the real thing becomes more valuable, right? So like the thing that I was talking about this morning where they were breeding tigers in captivity, they tried breeding tigers in captivity to meet the demand for tiger bone wine, which is a traditional medicine thing. Chandler has surprised everybody, by the way.
Yeah.
So they started breeding tigers in captivity to meet the demand for tiger bone wine. It opened up an entirely new market, an entirely new demand for the real thing, because people knew that was coming from captive bred tigers. And so one
Chocolate.
Where's the lemon?
Okay, we actually have 2 lemons.
Whoa.
We have
Wicked.
lemon blueberry and lemon.
Lemon.
Yes. And there's 2
Lemon.
chocolate ones in there, and one of them is gluten free.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Are you
nice.
guys okay if we save that for Lucas?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely
Just
what
making
this
sure.
is.
Thank you, Chandler.
Thanks, Chandler.
I did read
Yes.
up on like what the I
He's
hope
just-
I'm saying it right, like Tula Tula
Mhm.
Reserve was up to today, like with the rhinos that they had. And the dehorning was the approach that they took. Which like even in the book, like they talk about that might
It's
not
a
work
big-
100% of the time.
that's a bigger approach.
But that's the route that they took at the time of I think now, because I read it on the website today. So currently they have 4 rhinos and all of them are dehorned and have like tracking collars on them. So they just like, and they still have volunteer like guards that go around with them everywhere. So I just wonder how that's working out.
Oh, also, I don't know if you were getting to this, Maya, with what you were saying, because somebody kind of said it here too. With both things, people could be caught, and then it like another reason they were against it is they can say like, oh, I thought I was like I had a fake thing, and to like
Right,
avoid
yeah.
prosecution. So it like there's just so many ways around like.
Yeah. With that industry in
Yeah.
particular, though, like because there was so much tiger bone being circulated, it became more like accepted for people that aren't like crazy stupid rich to have tiger bone wine. But then it like started this entirely new demand and new industry for mega rich people to have like the real thing. So then there was more poaching of wild tigers. So they had to like shut it down. Yeah. So that's what I, like with like a synthetic rhino bone. I don't know if the same thing would happen or not.
Yeah, it seems like
Just for you.
it's not
Can you bring like spoons over here, Chandler? Are there a bunch in there?
throughout the tape, but yeah.
Maybe it is. I don't know.
No,
You
yeah.
never know.
And we also, as a team, we were talking about the future, like
Why would you do it like that?
Oh, just thought it'd be easier.
Thank you.
Lucas have one?
Okay, do you guys
Mhm.
here, I'm gonna get a little plate. Keep talking.
we talked about like the future of the northern white rhino and IVF and like the hybridization, but then also something I've been reading more about is like, and we talked about this as a team, like do you continue that route or do you look at the Sumatran and you know, rhino that is like critically endangered. There's only like 40 something left in Indonesia, and you go to, you know, just like redirect all efforts to protecting this one rhino that like there are only 40 something left. Yeah, it's like, where do you focus your efforts like moving forward?
When do you say that we can't save this one?
I want the confetti one. Thank you.
I like how we've all just claimed the cake.
Okay. Are we claiming cakes?
No, I just took the chocolate one because I don't.
I straight up
it's my
took the
favorite,
blueberry
but I am
one.
happy to share the chocolate one.
I think it depends on like whether or not the black rhino is like filling the ecological niche of the white rhino. Because the Sumatran rhino, obviously, that's the only rhino there. So like, is that more necessary for that ecosystem? I don't know the answer to that question. That would be my next like research topic if I was making that decision.
Yeah, definitely the black rhinos also. I took some notes, and he mentioned it in the book as well, but there are 3 subspecies. One of them went fully extinct in 2011, western black rhino. And from 1970 to 1993, their population decreased by 96%, going from 65,000 individuals to just like 2,300. So, yeah.
So this is fun.
Yeah. Also, this is probably the part that probably made us all the most uncomfy. Was just kind of when you had to be sitting with feelings of like recognizing the humanity within an organization like the LRA, and he kind of went in to describe that, just like meeting these people and seeing like just these young men that, you know, and realizing like it wasn't like a military base, and it was more just like a village of people. So that was a lot to like dig through, and like I felt really enlightened, and also I thought it was really interesting to talk about how like the way that we look at things through a Western form of like justice is not the type of system that can fix this problem. That, you know, we're looking at different countries within Africa, and an African form of justice, you know, was the appropriate approach. So yeah, just I feel like this book really expanded my perspective. Yeah.
I think that being a conservationist is a privilege. Like, I think it's a privilege to be set up enough yourself to worry about like protecting other species.
Your needs are met, so you can
Right, exactly.
beyond that,
Yeah. If your needs aren't met, like, you can't be like, let me go save this lizard, right? Like, you need to be like, let me feed myself and my family. I don't think that conservation happens without people having sustainable livelihoods, you know?
They talk a little bit about that, kind of the concept in the book of having to communicate that, like, for these animals, so it's like for rhinos specifically, they were like, you know, a dead rhino might provide for a family for a certain amount of time, but a live rhino creates jobs, which creates,
right,
you know, potential for a longer period of time, and just like the shift in that mentality.
Showing them that it's more value, like
there's more value.
in the long run, you'll be better off.
But in the meantime, to allow like a community or like a country or whatever to get to that point, there needs to be some assistance. Like if they're already not having exactly like their needs met, they don't have the resources in order to set up like the infrastructure needed to actually profit off of animals that are alive.
Yeah, I mean, he said ecotourism too. It's like interesting to see how important that is and like can be.
We've talked, and I think this ties into something that I know I've mentioned before that has like sent me on a spiral, which is like, how can you communicate to people the importance of saving animals when very often it's hard to get people to even have compassion for other people.
I will say, I thought about that. I thought about you saying that at the part where they were talking about that baby baboon. Because I actually think that, like, there are a lot of people, like, animals are such a American thing, feel like such a bipartisan thing. Like, you could have the biggest asshole ever and give them a puppy, and have, like, the sweetest person ever and give them a puppy, and they're probably going to treat them about the same, you know? Like, I think that people are sometimes more capable of, like, having sympathy, empathy, whatever, and, like, taking care of an animal than they are other people. Whether that's because they've been, like, burned by other people or what. I think it was really interesting, the contrast of this person being like, help me save this baboon, you know, in, like, the context of everything that was going on there. So, yeah, I thought about you saying that when I read that part, and I was like, maybe that's a good thing.
I think I'm a little jaded because, like, on the flip side of that, I, like, think about, like, the fact that our Congress can't even make it illegal to run down animals with snowmobiles. And that people do that. Like, that was an actual thing that was like, hey, maybe we should say this isn't okay. And people are like, no, that's fine.
Evan said realizing that conservation is not everyone's priority is a huge first step in successful conservation efforts. That community engagement and explanation is the first step. And I feel like that kind of ties into everything obviously we're talking about, but for some reason that made me think of, like, yeah, when you engage with, like, the people within the community first with, like, okay, so you have a farmer and their crop is being destroyed by an elephant. They need this crop to make money, but to help the elephant, you know, they're doing things now like beehive fences to deter elephants from, like, encroaching on crops. So, like, for the farmer, maybe it's not the thinking of the long-term conservation, and possibly it is, not to generalize, but, like, it's helping them now, but then also helping elephants and the benefit of elephants in the future. So, like, community engagement is so important and so vital. Yeah.
I completely agree with that, and I think to add on to that, like, another really important part is being able to see things from their perspective as well, like, not coming into that situation with a lot of judgment, and just kind of like coming there to preach. Because again, if people are just worried about, like, how they're going to get food on the table, like, they're not thinking about sustainability and, like, the future of climate change and things like that.
Absolutely.
They're thinking about feeding their families,
And
surviving.
so far, yeah, like, sustainability, climate change, like, that's a very privileged, like you said, like, westernized concept. And so when you do have privileged westernized people coming into a community and being like, this is how you should be doing things, like, that's not how things are achieved.
Yeah.
100%.
So yes, community engagement, but with, like, perspective and empathy for what that community is going through or has gone through.
I was in Belize one time, and this guy killed a snake, and it wasn't a venomous snake. And me and the guy that we were with were like, why? Like, why did you do that? What is the point? And he was so, like, confused that we were upset because they just kill every snake that they see because they have a ton of venomous snakes out there. And they have, like, kids that run around. Yeah, and it's just like, why would we not kill it? Like, it's gonna kill us kind of thing. And they don't have any, without, like, education of why that benefits them, like, they have no reason to not do that. And it was kind of crazy for me to go in there and be like, what are you doing when I don't live there? There are a lot of themes that overlap with the last book that we read too, of, like, David going into these places and being like, who am I to say, like, don't shoot that orangutan when I'm not the one that's having to make a living despite him stealing stuff, you know? Yeah. It's a big piece of conservation for sure.
Yeah.
Considering all sides is hard, but so important, for sure. Definitely. I
A
think
lot of-
that's what makes this such a interesting book, is that it's a very nuanced. I mean, the book is full. It's kind of more than everything we're saying because we're literally dealing with the LRA. So, like, it's, I think, a little bit more nuanced and complex than just, like, working with people in a village, you know. So that it really definitely challenged you to, like, you know, have to, like, see the perspective of so many different sides and complexities to that.
Some people are talking about the animal that what you were mentioning, Maya with the baboon, it said depends on the animal as well.
That's true.
They said, I don't know if y'all were aware of the chicken jockey drama, but a lot of people seem to have the take that it didn't matter because the victim was a chicken and people eat those every day.
What is chicken jockey drama? Like the Minecraft movie? What is there drama?
I know, but it
I don't know
immediately
what
made me
you're
think of
talking
the cockfighting in the last book though too.
Yeah.
Like
They literally like attach spiders and fight them to the
and
death.
knives to
Mhm.
yeah.
Someone bring in a real chicken? What?
What?
I have no idea what the chicken jockey
So,
stuff is.
mo-
I just
so
thought it was cockfighting.
The Minecraft movie, you guys are familiar. You're familiar with Minecraft. They made a movie, and in the movie, there's like Jack Black.
Oh,
I think
gosh.
gets on
Oh.
a chicken and is like chicken jockey. But what?
Oh my
Somebody bought a live chicken theater and was swinging it around. Okay, yeah, that is drama. That sucks.
That's gross.
What? What? Real chicken and screen. Oh my god, that's awful. I think so. Yeah, so it does depend on the species for sure. Maybe it's not most of the time, but sometimes people are capable of having sympathy for animals where they're not capable of having sympathy for people. But not something to count on. Sure.
Yeah, that's gross. I hate so much.
And then they left with it.
Oh no.
Rhino friend, what a...
Wait, now's your time.
Yeah.
They've been around forever.
You had bad news for you, Rhino friend. I feel like this book's kind of a tough one to talk about. It just went in so many crazy directions. And like we talked about earlier, like kind of a small portion of it was actually about rhinos.
I think it's really good to know, like, or it's good to get such a firsthand account of how not simple it is.
Yeah.
I knew a lady that she had an organization to breed endangered birds of New Guinea. And so she was breeding them in captivity with like the goal to reintroduce them into the wild because they're endangered. And she did all this captive breeding and she had like a ton of, like hundreds of birds. And she wanted to go release them in New Guinea. And she could never get permission from the government to release them. And even if she did, their habitat is like so destroyed over there that there was like no point in going to release them. And now all the birds just live in captivity at like a bird park.
Dang.
Sorry, that was really depressing. I don't know why I told you guys that. But like the point is, it's not always as simple, you know, as just like let's just breed more. Let's just like save them. Like it's really complicated and it takes a freaking army and a lot of money.
I think an important thing to bring up, and I can't remember how he phrased it in the book, and I can't remember where in the book that it is, but he's talking about all the troubles that he's going through, jumping through all like the bureaucratic hoops that he needs to, and how everyone was just kind of either sending him in circles or just not really taking him seriously. And I forgot what he said, but it was something about how all of them kind of wanted to just like feel big and important and just weren't kind of giving him the time of day because of that. And I think it does highlight kind of a toxic part of our field, at least, that I think is important to be aware of. One is in the field or kind of wanting to go into the field of there are people with kind of like I want to be the hero, so I want to do it my way. And that was kind of like the impression that he was giving me about the government officials that he was talking about. And I can try to find the page where there was one line that I was like, I feel like I've encountered that a lot. But like so much conservation, it only works if it is genuinely, truly like collaborative and one person isn't trying to just be like, well, no, I'm the hero, like I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna find it because I feel like it's gonna be way easier to talk about.
I get what you're saying. That is true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like how he had like one of them, like the one from I think the embassy or no, someone from one part of the government was like, "Yes, I'll even come with you."
Right.
And then they go to the other one and they're like, "No."
Mhm.
And he's like, "But why? I have this for everything you need." And they're just like, "No,
Yeah.
we need more information." And he's like, "You literally have it all." And your boss said yes, and they're like, "It's not my boss."
Yeah, the older I get, the more I realize that like systems just they do exist, but like they're not what I thought they were when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like turns out like everyone's just an adult, which is just means that everyone's a kid trying like acting like they know what's going on. And like it just takes the right person at the right time making the right thing happen, and I don't know, it's not as simple or as easy as we thought. Which like sometimes is reassuring and sometimes scary and frustrating.
Evan, saving animals is great, but if there's no habitat for them to go back to, it's pointless. Habitat and land conservation benefits all species, from rhinos to bugs and everything in between.
Yep.
I did find one of the parts that I was thinking of. There was another line, but it said that unless a miracle happened, the species would go extinct in the wild, not because of poachers or the LRA, not because of these very real physical threats, but because of the curse of so many conservation efforts, hubris, and self-interest. Is
Yes.
what got me thinking. Conservation efforts don't work if any party is working in self-interest.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
I think that part stuck with me the most, just because of how prevalent it is in the field.
Yeah, I don't really know how to like, not that we're solving that problem right now,
No.
but like, I don't really know how to tackle that problem. My first thought is that like diversity is important in the field of conservation. I think that like one of the reasons that problem's amplified probably is that there's like an archetype of a conservationist, like a white man, that is like peak, you know, and that is like the serious conservationist that like and you look to and knows what's going on. And then there's like, I've had this plenty of times at conferences where it's like young woman is like not conservationist, you know? And so having more diversity might help so that like people start recognizing lots of people that look like lots of different things as conservationists. But we have a ways to go, but it has changed, you know, it changes all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
How are people being selfish in the conservation field?
They want to be
Also, just
showy.
in general, you'd be shocked at the number of people who work at facilities for people whose passion is not animals.
Yep, they just want the notoriety of it. They don't actually care about what they're doing. They just want to be seen as a good person.
Like, it has gotten to the point, I think, now where when people come to me those stories, I'm no longer surprised
Yeah.
being a part of the field. I'm like, oh,
There's
this is not a
another-
unique experience.
Yeah.
There's another
Working with
one.
somebody who does not understand what these animals need and does not care to learn what they need.
There's people who go into the field genuinely wanting to do the best for animals and save animals, and there's people who go into the field who want to be the one to save the animals.
Yeah.
Which are two, they might accomplish the same thing, but they're two very different drives.
You hear another sad
Yeah.
another sad thing? Another sad thing. When I was an intern, zookeeper, there was this other intern zookeeper, and he was like, when we started working together, he was, I don't know, he seemed like he cared about it a lot and was really passionate about it. And then like over the course of the summer, he just became like really irresponsible and was doing like, he was like going in with the tiger and like whatever. And we had a conversation like at the end of the internship, and I was like, what do you want out of this kind of thing? Like, what are you going to do after this? And this is really depressing. He like learned enough about conservation, or felt like he learned enough about conservation throughout that internship, where he was like, the world is like going to shit anyway. Like there's no point in doing anything. So, but I love animals. So like all I care about is like hanging out with big cats. Like he was like, I just want to like hang out with them. Like he wanted to like care for them and whatever because he loved them, but he was like, all the, I'm only living one time, so I just
pictures, bro.
Yeah, he
That's
just
all
wants to like be
yeah.
in there and be the guy that's like hanging out with the big cats and like being cool, and because he thinks that's cool. But I really think maybe I'm being too generous, but I think when he came into the internship, he like was kind of in there, and then the more he learned about it, the more he was like, like what's the point? Which is sad. I did preface it.
Yes,
You did.
It's really sad. So maybe there's some people that come in with good intentions and then get jaded and then burn out and just give up and then become one of the problem people. I think that's what happened with him.
Somebody just asked, did he marry Joe Exotic?
Did he marry Joe Exotic? No, but
Joe
that's a
Exotic
good
is
point.
married.
Joe,
Married
he is,
person.
yes. That is a good point. I think there are a lot of really well-intended young people that started working for people like Joe Exotic, where they're like, they love animals and they want to help. And then they get intertwined in this industry, and turns out there's a lot of money there and there's a lot of fame there. And you get a lot of attention and whatever, and you just get lost in the sauce. And then it doesn't become about the animals anymore. It's an industry. It's a for-profit industry. So I think a lot of people have been turned that way. Or if they're young enough and impressionable enough, and the people leading them are bad enough, then they get manipulated into being lost in the sauce and causing problems when that's never what they wanted to do.
Yeah, I know people that came from like facilities that they're not proud to have been at, but they just were they just felt bad for leaving the animals. So it was like a lot of guilt, and then they finally were able to get out of it. Now they know and do better, and like, but I like empathize with that too, like of feeling like you can't leave the animals or something because they're in just such a bad situation.
I think that's a huge
Which
reason
is-
why people stay at those facilities.
Yeah.
They think that like if they leave, the
Yeah.
treatment is just going to get worse because they're just going to hire more people like them.
Yeah.
Which is a huge thing. I mean, like, because there's a feeling, I think, and I can't speak for everyone who's been in the field, but that you're replaceable, that you're easily replaceable because there are going to be people who want to do the work you're doing.
Yeah.
So if you don't conform enough,
And if you don't accept,
no money enough,
It's the passion tax.
Yeah.
and it's why I think people in this field are often exploited, because the people who do go into this field for the right reasons have a tremendous amount of compassion and empathy and capacity to give so much of themselves that when it's taken advantage of for a long enough period of time, you just end up with nothing left to give to anybody, including yourself.
Wow.
So that's cool.
So that's another cool topic.
There's that.
But
Yeah.
I want to work at my local zoo, but they pay less than Walmart. Yeah, you see a lot of that.
That's
privileged
very-
field to be in, unfortunately.
For those who really care about conservation, it can be hard to see hope after learning a lot. Occasionally discussing stories, success stories and milestones is important. Yeah. No, people should not have to work a job for free or be underpaid to feel ethical about their work. No, I think we've said this. I think there was like a thing that went around at one point that was like, if your job has an appreciation week, you're probably underpaid. And like under acknowledged. I've talked, this is definitely like a tangent away from the book, but I've talked about Alveus before in that capacity, and the potential for Alveus to reveal a lot about what zookeepers really do and how much they're relied upon for the health and well-being of their animals, and how very often zookeepers are the first line of defense in terms of like veterinary care, because they're the ones that notice when things are wrong. They have to have enough knowledge about the animal and their natural behaviors and their histories to do that. So I think that zookeepers are tremendously underappreciated and undervalued in the capacity of work that they do. And that not enough attention is given to the fact that this job is emotionally taxing and physically taxing. So yeah, people should be paid more. Nobody should have to work 2 jobs to do something that they're passionate about.
Anyway, that was a tangent. We're back.
Long chat messages.
Yeah. they're long.
The other problem with animal industry is that so many people want to work with animals that the places can pay nothing for wages. Yep, and prey on the enthusiasm of people. That's exactly right.
The passion tax.
You get that with volunteers too.
Mm-hmm.
Volunteers just want to show up to. Not all volunteers. That's not. But I have worked in places where volunteers don't want to show up to do any of the heavy lifting. Which is why, like, when we talk about ways to get into this field, we're like, if you show up and you're willing to do the heavy lifting, that says a lot about you as a person, because a lot of people show up and don't want to do that. They just want to be handed an animal.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go straight to the animal stuff, not do anything else that the animal needs.
This also
That
goes
90%
back
of the job is.
Yeah.
to the diversity problem.
Yes.
Also,
Because
Yes.
so many everybody loves animals. Like, so many kids, young people want to get into this field. But because there are so many, people don't do paid internships, or you have to start volunteering. The only reason that I got into this at all is because I did unpaid internships at zoos all through college, because I didn't have to have a job in college because my parents supported me. If I had to, like, I had friends that were working 2 jobs in college to, like, pay for college. She could, like, one of them, she could never have done an unpaid internship at a zoo. And then the people that get those unpaid internships and get that, like, jump in experience off the bat are the ones that get the jobs. And then the field becomes very as hell. You missed it.
They're silencing her.
Wait, gone again?
No, we're still gone.
Hello.
You
Same.
silenced me twice.
Saved. Third time's the charm. I said that when you have unpaid internships involved. Oh my god!
This is just rude.
Come again. But what? White people suck.
No, I didn't say that. I said, hello? Hello? Can you hear me? I said,
Hello.
part of the
Say
diversity
it
problem
fast.
in this field is that there are so many unpaid internships and unpaid volunteer opportunities. The only way that you can get into those opportunities is by having the privilege and ability to take that work, because you don't have to do other work. And then people that already have that privilege have a leg up in their resume because they have that experience. And then when they go to get a job, they're the ones with the experience, they're the ones that get hired. And so the field becomes very white. That's what I said. White and privileged. And for people that have, people that have privilege. That's what I said.
Yeah. Kayla mentioned how, like, in the field there's a lot of facilities that do have volunteers or, like, unpaid interns. And I think it's, which, like, if you're doing an internship, like, you should be paid. I think this field is especially tricky because a lot of the facilities just don't have the resources. And you can say, like, okay, well, like, don't get the animals that you're, like, burning out your staff. But at the same time, there's so many animals out there that need to be rescued. And, like, how do you while still accomplishing the goal that you want to accomplish? I'm not looking for an answer. Is it true?
Yeah.
There's places when I went to the I8 conference that are run entirely on volunteer staffs, and they cycle out like monthly because a lot of them are students at universities and stuff. So like depending on the semester, they just cycle them throughout the year. But like that's just a lot. It's just a lot to put on people. Like to have a facility that's run entirely by volunteers, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Where Lucas and I came from, there was around 100 volunteers at any like given time. So it run a lot on volunteers,
Sounds
but
like a
it's still like a
nightmare.
strain on staff because that's a lot of it's volunteers. Like you can't expect.
Yeah,
people to show
that's
up. So there's
hard.
a lot of turnover, whether it is school or just life, and that's completely fine. They're volunteers.
Mhm. Yeah.
But it's a lot of training and still, yeah, just a lot of work.
Money is always the issue. Yes. True. True. How did we get here?
I don't know.
How does this relate back to the
Talking
book?
about self-interest in conservation fields.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think, and this is something I like. I don't even think I've explained to you guys yet because it's not like locked in. It's something that I want to look at with Alveus in 2025, 2026 is one really, really, really important aspect of conservation is and I've said this on stream before, right? Like, remember all the animal quests at the end when I do the recommendation section and I'm like, I don't really know what to tell you guys because you're not consuming rhino horn, right? Or you're not like poaching this pangolin to eat, right? Like you're not there where these animals are that I'm teaching you about. You're not burning down the rainforest. So like, what do I tell you? A huge, which I'm just a broken record now, but a huge part of conservation is getting to the places where those animals actually reside and not just teaching them about it, but giving them an alternative way to make a living that is more sustainable, that benefits both them and their wild spaces. So that is something that we want to get more into in 2025. I have ideas. Let me cook, guys. It's coming. Don't
And
worry.
I think that's, sorry. I
That's
think
it.
that's also important to keep in mind if they, because you guys are like some of the most generous people I've ever met. If you are like looking into conservation organizations to donate to, that is a green flag that I look out for is how much are they doing with their community? Are they just the saviors coming in to try to help fix everything, or are they actually trying to help the community get back on their feet and kind of like Maya said, like give them the tools and resources that they need in order to create like a sustainable livelihood for themselves. So that's a great thing to look out for when you are looking at international conservation organizations. Anything that's community based.
There's a really good example of that in Indonesia on Lock with Project Hume. It was started by an Australian girl, but she went in to film the shark market there because it's one of the most it's like one of the number one most biggest shark market, and she's went in not like with the intention to save sharks, but in turn she has now repurposed 7 or 11 shark fishing boats into ecotourism, and she's created bathrooms for the school. She's created filtered water for the kids on the island. Every single kid has their own reusable water to stop bringing in single-use plastic. And they've like also just they just created a whole new thing for so she's done a lot. And like they now have like I think another like spot in Bali now, but like she went in to like photograph the sharks and then she just stayed and now has sent 4 kids to college from this community with the money from the ecotourism, showing them that your life matters more than the dead shark you bring in to pay for 2 days worth of livelihood.
I visited a village in Brazil, and the government gives them a stipend for like using their resources in the Amazon rainforest like sustainably. So they have to report what they take, and if they like meet those reportings, then the government gives them money. And this village that I visited, they got that grant from the government, and they used the grant money to build a restaurant for tourists, like in their very, very small, like you could walk around there in like 20 minutes small area is like, that's what they put their money into, is so that people could come and eat there. Like it's that important. You know, they could have put that money towards a lot of different things or like new bathrooms or a schoolhouse or whatever. And they were like, no, restaurant for tourists. So Yeah. Maybe ecotourism is the wave. This book says that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think tying back to like what we've all talked about to like the conservation of rhinos, if you guys are interested, a few that I would look into, just for some basic information, International Rhino Foundation, the Liwa Wildlife Conservancy, and Ol Pejita are just a few to look into. The last two are based in Kenya, and one of those does have two northern white rhinos, the last two females, that you can follow along if
Cool.
you're interested.
Yes, ecotourism is also a whole other conversation in itself. There's certainly good ecotourism and there's bad ecotourism. But at least we're going somewhere,
Yeah.
guys.
They're at least acknowledging that the animals are better alive than dead,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and that's the start. That's at least a good start.
Yeah. Would you mind explain? Sorry, ecotourism is going to visit somewhere to see their wildlife, flora, fauna, whatever, and then the money made from those trips goes into those communities or into the conservation efforts or whatever you're visiting. Maybe that was poorly explained. If you guys could explain that better. Okay.
Yeah.
But generally, yeah, making like the alive things more valuable as staying alive rather than being dead.
Yeah.
Ecotourism allows them to keep profiting off of, in a good way,
Right.
off of keeping the animals alive.
So think like man in the bush that is like poaching or like hunting for his family to eat. He knows that area very well. If there was a business started where he could take people into the bush to see those animals because he knows where they are and then he gets paid for it, then that's how he makes his money instead. You feel me?
And one way that we can encourage that is by obviously like only supporting like ethical ecotourism practices.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do have certain like people in a community doing it unethically, they can be like, oh well, the only people getting business are the people who are doing it in a moral way, and so like maybe I will too. So it is hard to feel like your decisions or whatever like actually have an impact, but
They do.
just gotta vote with your money. I'll look more into agritourism though. I don't think I know much about it.
More of it. Yeah, what does that even mean? Consumerism is a huge tool. What is one of the biggest threats to the dairy industry, chat? The dairy alternative industry. Why is there a dairy alternative industry? Probably because a lot of people are lactose intolerant and because people want alternatives because they're vegetarian or vegan. It's mostly the former, right? But the point is, it's what consumers want. Demand. Woohoo!
Magdagu said agritourism is mostly for rural farms outside of cities, etc., to bring families, friends out to learn how farming works, etc., and to experience it. Okay.
Cool, cool. Oh, you pick farms. I love a you pick.
Dude, hell yeah. Yeah.
Wicked. Wicked. All right.
Because oat isn't goated.
Any other on the
Someone hit us with a cool rhino fact. I know someone asked about that earlier. I'm gonna look at you, Amanda.
Amanda.
Yeah. So a cool rhino fact.
Or anyone. We all
Yeah,
just really
southern
look
white rhino. You know, they're not white, they're gray. But it's a misnomer from the African word wide, W-Y-D, to white, but really white. They are grazers.
Are they the ones with the square?
Yes, they
I
have a
love
square mouth,
that.
so they are grazers. Whereas black rhinos, for example, have the pointier lips, and they are prehensile, meaning they can utilize the upper lip to like grab things and grasp browse and plants.
Cool.
That sounds cute.
Yeah.
That sounds very cute.
I like the square mouths. I think they're cute.
Like I said, I kind of like re-looked up Tula Tula and how they're doing today. I can't remember the names, but the female, they weren't having babies for a while. They found out that the male was infertile, which is kind of sad. But they've been using, I think, like IVF or whatever, like the Rhino version of it is.
Artificial insemination.
And got her preggers. And unfortunately, the baby did not make it, but they're hopeful for another baby. Because now they know that she can have one. That she can have babies.
Cool.
They're thriving.
Wicked. Artificial insemination. I also think like ecotourism stuff too. I think that industry only exists if people want to see them, you know? And so I think there's like something to be said about education and awareness and like teaching people about animals and like getting people excited about nature. That's kind of like it's a more abstract concept, but something that I feel like I've seen a lot of, at least throughout my career. I've been really surprised by the amount of people that will like get behind it that aren't into it already, right? Gamers, for example. Like the more you learn about it, the cooler it is. And a lot of you have probably experienced that, like converting too. It's like the more you learn about the animals at Alveus, you're like, oh my God, cool. I love them. Like, I bet you guys would love to see a Momo or like an Appa in the wild or something like that. And would you have that desire had you not learned about them? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe you wouldn't care. So that's reassuring. I think that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
We have the ability to do a lot of that. My sister stopped killing bugs because of me, Slay.
Yay.
All right. Anything else? No, book club thoughts.
This was a crazy ass book.
It was a crazy book.
I feel like it's been a really subdued discussion. I feel like we're all just kind of like sitting in it.
Yeah,
We
I think it's
get
a book
into
that
the
does it to
LRA.
you.
I don't know if there's much to say, like really
That's
about
true.
the like. I mean,
Shrez, I'm gonna be honest. A lot of this is just a few of the
Acknowledge
things I said in
that
the beginning, and
it
then
put
just
us
facts
in
about
our
rhinos.
feelings.
Yeah,
Oh, so
At
you
least
have
they
facts
cared
about
more
rhinos.
about the rhino.
I do. I wrote down a few things.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah,
I never cared about birds until I learned more about them.
it made
Same.
me go down.
Happens to the best of us.
Because honestly, I wanted to learn more about Sumatran rhinos, and yep, the depression just continued. So, yeah.
We used to have a Sumatran at Cincinnati Zoo, and he ended up getting shipped back to Sumatra to be part of their breeding program
Oh, wow.
since he was a different a genetic pool.
Cool.
They had a good party for him.
That's cute.
It was very cute. They decorated his space with like bon voyage stuff.
Aw. All right. Well, a depressing read, everybody. But I'm glad that I didn't read it. I listened to it.
Yes.
But I'm glad I listened to it. I learned a lot. I think it's good to have so much. The more we understand it, the more well equipped we are to approach it. So
Yeah.
I'm stoked. I learned a lot. I think it was cool.
Yeah.
But it was a lot for sure.
I definitely learned a lot, and I think it's like it for me too. Like as much as this was like not a lot about rhinos, we kind of were discussing too that it's hard. Like it just makes sense, right? It's so linked to the politics of what's happening in these countries, and honestly, this book inspired me to want to learn more about that stuff.
Mhm.
And just because I grew up, like most of us, in a society that I did not learn a lot about this history. So for me, this was really intriguing and eye-opening. So I feel like this opened up a doorway of like wanting to dive way more into this.
I'm excited to get talk to him next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go talk to the rangers and be like, tell me everything.
Yeah.
Tell me everything about your life.
Give us the deets. All right. Are you guys ready to pick the next book?
Please be happy.
Surely it'll be a happy one. Definitely. Based on the options on the wheel, it definitely will. Yes. Space, are you ready?
No, I'm eating the rest of this cake.
Pausers, hype.
Okay, everyone did that. Good.
What?
Yeah, I put it off for a little while and then I was just like, fuck it.
Yeah, I just straight up ate. I knew I was gonna eat the whole thing.
I put it in the bowl to start. I was ambitious that I was not going to eat the whole thing.
I ate the whole thing.
100% knew I was gonna eat the whole thing.
I ate it. All right. Here we go.
We all.
Spin that wheel. Spinning. A lot of books on there.
Negative Toast will have like a book recommended.
Mm-hmm.
Staff book recommends. Or staff recommends what books.
I think they were asking about
This is
adding
scary.
something. No.
What?
Potential book Rex.
Oh, that's the
John
John
Green.
Green one, isn't it? Oh,
Ooh.
sick.
You read it?
Yeah.
Wow, we have a resident expert. Everybody.
Let's just do it now. Book club now.
I've heard great things about this book. I've read that one actually. I love this book. Wow, what the heck? Guys.
Is this a happy one? Does anyone know? It's so good. Oh, people are excited?
Yeah, it's really good.
Excited. Sick.
Wicked.
That gives me hope.
I love anything John Green. I've reread it. You should totally have him as a collaborator for the next book club. Yeah, I'll DM him. I don't got pull like that, Dr. Nick. I could try.
Well, with John
Yeah.
Green would be crazy. That would be
Yeah.
wild.
I would not be able to speak in a book club like that. I'd be too nervous.
I'd be like,
It would be
"Well,
him basically
I
telling us
like-
about the book, and we'll be like, yes.
I
Is
read
John Green as
books."
in Hank Green's brother?
Yes.
Yes.
No, not related at all.
They just happen to have the same name. It's fine.
His brother went on the yard. Guys, Hank Green knows what Alveus is, actually.
They have an audiobook.
But I don't think John Green
Sick.
does. All right, and there's an audiobook. Guys, thank you for coming to book club this month. Appreciate it. Excited to read the next book.
They seem like the kind of dudes that would come to Alveus. You know what? They kind of do.
Yeah. They would probably have a great time.
They kind of do.
Excellent. All right, guys.
Chat, work your magic.
We'll see you later.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for reading.
Until next time.
Stay cool.
Goodbye.
Stay hip, stay cool.
Stay
Goodbye.
Okay, bye.